was recorded earlier.
I urge you to listen to Hope for the Heart. That's our half-hour program, and it's on most of these stations. Well, next time, what's good about suffering? It just doesn't seem fair at times, does it? Good people face problems, illnesses, and severe trauma. So why is there suffering in the world? Why do good people face problem after problem? June Hutt explains how the hard times in your life are not wasted. There is purpose in pain. And that's next time on Hope for the Heart. Hope you'll tune in for that. We want to turn to our caller for tonight. She listens on the podcast from Pennsylvania. Tonight we have Michelle.
Hi, Michelle. Welcome to Hope.
Hi, June.
How can we help you?
I was telling the producer, like, I had a bunch of thoughts flowing through my mind, like, where would I begin? I guess the best place to start is, I didn't come from a history of abuse. I was always around it or seeing it until it happened to me, and it was almost like I was set up for it, you know. And there were a lot of abusers around us. You know, it seemed like nowadays the attraction to children is now making it mainstream. And it happened to me, it was 1985. They didn't talk about minor attraction or anything like that. Very confusing. My sisters were in a daycare center for 2 weeks. I was frantic. My mom and I I had been skipping school to babysit because it was their babysitter and my dad was in jail. By the time I found my sisters, by the time I found my sisters, they were with a daycare operator who was charged with 11 counts of raping boys. You could imagine where my mind is at this point. He wouldn't let me see my sisters when I approached the door and knocked to see them. If somebody had let me on, this had been going on for 2 weeks up to this point. Like, I had no idea where my sisters were.
And how old were they compared to you? You were, what age approximately then?
I was 14.
Okay, and so your sisters
and
were...
everybody made fun of me. My foster mother called me Little Mommy. Made jokes about it. She exposed herself to me the third day I was in her home. And she's a sex offender. In my eyes, there's a lot of people who have not been registered sex offenders, and she's one of them.
Are you saying that's your mother?
I'm not afraid to say that. That's my foster mother.
Foster mother.
They're abusers. They weren't... Back in 1985, they didn't have a registry like they do today, you know. Now, remember, 1985, this is when Deepak Pates had gone missing, so there was a real legitimate reason for my concern. Like, I was thinking, obviously, anything possible. At that time, though, I didn't know to call the police. I didn't know what to do because, my mom was going to get in trouble. My mom could have gone to jail for what happened to my sisters, you know. When you drop your kids off at daycare, you have to pick them up at the end of the day. She let them stay there with a sex offender.
Yes.
So that began my battle with pedophiles. And I've tried to grapple with a lot of things. Like, I'm still today, like, I haven't moved an inch about this, but I wrote a letter to, I think everybody knows who he is. His name's Samian from That's for Child Rescue, and I told him my story. And I just want to be able to feel like whole again because I feel like I did the right thing. I found my sisters alive. I felt like I succeeded. Where a lot of people, our kids could have been sold off to child sex slavery, and that's the reality, and that's how to maybe feels about it, about what I went through, you know. So I was always the person that got there just in time. And then I got sexually assaulted, and that's when things changed. It was different being a victim. It's one thing being the hero of the story, like kind of like in a dysfunctional family or an alcoholic family like mine. I played the hero. But then I became a victim, and that was so different because I felt the helplessness, I felt the victimization, I felt pain, I felt all of that. I didn't know what that felt like because, you know.
So you said that you've actually found, and now later, years later, you found your two sisters. Is that right?
I found them there. They were, at that time, they were 2 and 4 years old.
Okay.
And I still have memories of it. Like, the reason I can talk about it now is that the person that was charged wasn't charged for what he did to my sisters. Like, apparently he had sexually abused my sisters. Okay?
Yes.
He wasn't charged for it. He was charged on it. He was picked up for separate charges. And the reason I can talk about it now is because he died in 2016. I pulled up his rap sheet, and I could not believe how many times he has been picked up for indecent I think it's indecent assault and a number of charges. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. It's a matter of public record, so. And that's when my world crumbled, because I realized I was dealing with something way bigger than, you know, like, I couldn't, 2016 I fell apart. And I've been trying to get my life together, because I realized what kind of criminal I was dealing with. Like, you know, when you're 14 years old, you're a lot, my mental state at 14 years old is I had adults that were working with me, Department of Human Services here in the greater Pittsburgh region was helping me. So I wasn't at this alone, you know. It's different because I'm an adult.
Well, you were traumatized multiple times, and
I'm sorry.
you were traumatized because when you have no ability to stop the evil that was being perpetrated on you, it can at the time take away your sense of hope. And besides, you're 14. I mean, 14 is not the age of greatest understanding of what to do. Because
thank you.
the brain, sweetheart, the brain doesn't even develop fully until age 25 to 28. So kids don't know what to do, and it doesn't matter what. See, some people look back and they'll think, "Well, why didn't you go tell?" Well, wait a minute. That's not what kids do. That's not the norm at all. They don't even know they have permission to do it. And they can be so scared for multiple reasons that isn't even an option unless they are trained to do it. I'm going to repeat that. Michelle, unless they are trained, told ahead of time, if anyone touches you in the area covered by your bathing suit, if anyone tries, you scream, you run, you tell, you must, to empower children to know what to do. But most children have never heard any of that. Now, we have that in our material on childhood sexual abuse.
Welcome back to Hope in the Night. I'm Jeff Oliver. We want to help you, and we want to help you help others. Our care teams are ready to take your calls now at 800-488-HOPE. They can help guide you to God's hope through our resources and pray with you also. That's 800-488-HOPE. 4673. Let me mention the resources that June talked about: abuse recovery, from surviving to thriving. Also, childhood sexual abuse, the secret storm. And those are keys for living. We have a book also called How to Rise Above Abuse. It covers many forms of abuse, and those will be found there and be helpful to you as well. So that's the book, How to Rise Above Abuse. These resources and others are available to you. Again, order them at 800-488-HOPE. If you would like to speak with June about a specific situation in your life, a future broadcast of Hope in the Night would be great for you to connect with us. And I want you to call us at 800-NIGHT-17. That's 800-NIGHT. The number is 17. Just call and follow the prompts. Leave us a detailed message, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible to schedule you for the next available Hope in the Night. That's 800-NIGHT-17, 800-644-4817. And now back to our conversation with Michelle.
Well, Michelle, as I'm listening to you, I sense that you are having memories coming back. And that can surprise you, but that's very healthy. Because I told you that part of what I heard when it's like all of a sudden, here this perpetrator dies. Well, a lot of people are stuck where it's like sometimes they can't talk, they can't get things out, they're in bondage. And God intends for us to be made whole. There's a scripture that says, "Heal me, O Lord, and I will be healed. Save me, and I will be saved." And God wants us healed. And the problem can be that if it's like if everything is bound inside you, you want to pray to face your past. And now listen to this, because I think this is important. Some people are afraid to remember. I'm just going to mention this. Some people say, I don't want to remember anything. Well, but Jesus said the truth sets you free. Are you aware of that scripture? The truth sets you free. Well, so remembering is a key to overcoming past victimization. And it's the first step toward healing. But sometimes, what if you don't remember? Well, God will use different things, like flashbacks. Sometimes it's parenthood. Having a child the age at which you were victimized. It can be media coverage. It can be a victory over an addiction, because now a person is no longer medicating themselves by whatever drug of choice, and then they're able to have accurate memories. There can be dreams. God can speak to us literally in dreams, or there can be nightmares. Now, the next point here that I wrote in our material is a significant death. And we're talking about typically the death of the perpetrator. And when you mention this, after he died, all of a sudden, here are these memories that are coming. It can also be touch and the testimony of others. I remember one time, my friend, we had it was the beginning of our ministry, and we were doing programs that were not heard anything like what was heard on normal Christian radio, and yet we were a program called Hope for the Heart. And one of our young, she's about 28. She was opening the mail, one of our employees, and she slowly, ever so slowly walked. And she said, I've just read my story. And what it was a grandfather who, she used to love going to the grandparents' home. And then all of a sudden she didn't want to go. The parents didn't know why. Having no idea what the grandfather was doing to her. And now she has just read her story, not really her story, but it was somebody else's story, and it started bringing back this flood of memories that then she began to, well, she was able to deal with it, because before it's like there was a block. And so God uses different things to help, if you will, bring back the memories. And it's not just memories for the sake of memories. I'm going to ask, have you actually written out your whole story? Like in a journal?
I did at one point, not recently. I will tell you, though, I used to have severe sleep paralysis over what happened. Like, my body was in a petrified state, like I couldn't get out of it. So I know what I went through was it was completely demonic. Because I didn't know it was a satanic, occult type crime. I didn't know how serious it was. Like, I know what it is now. They call it SRAs. And,
yes, satanic ritual abuse. Yeah.
My sister has so many problems. Like, they didn't come from our upbringing. They were introduced to something, you know. And when I was 19, I had a relatively normal high school. I mean, I had an awesome boyfriend. I was a pom-pom girl for the high school that I went to. So I had a relatively normal. Right after all this had happened, we had gone into court. We had been put into foster homes. And that's how I was telling you about how I was exposed to by that one foster mother.
Oh, yes.
But I did have God put other things in my life. That's what I kind of want to remind people. It's like there was still a way out. Like, life is, there was obviously I was in a bad situation, but God provided other ways for me to escape. You know what I mean? Like, domestic violence is the same way. But I mean, I have not had the sleep paralysis I used to have. Like, that's one of the things I've noticed I'm gradually healing from. And I had it pretty bad. So I'm hoping I can recover more, because I started to remember soft serve ice cream as we're talking, you know. I didn't remember, I stopped being a child at 14, you know.
Yeah.
But I stopped enjoying, like, I remember Hello Kitty, going to downtown and getting Hello Kitty and the erasers and collecting stickers. I was telling somebody that, and I was like, oh my God, where did that come from? You know, like, my memories are back. Like, I blocked everything. I blocked almost like, everything from that point of dealing with that pedophile.
Yes.
He didn't abuse me. He abused the kids. And if I didn't get there in time, it could have been probably much worse. And I want to say something about the police. They were gentle, sensitive, and I felt like we got rescued. You know, when the police got there to the daycare center, they were nothing but professional and kind. And that was in 1985. I don't know about how people interpret things. I think it goes situation by situation. They were nothing but professional. And I saw my little sister, my 2-year-old sister, hug his leg, and I wish there was a portrait of him holding, her holding his leg. The police officer's leg. I wish there was artwork that I wish I could paint. Because, I mean, there were some moments in this that were just deserved to be on a painting, on a canvas.
Well, and I've heard many.
She was hugging his leg because she knew she was rescued.
Because she was safe with him. Yeah.
Yeah, she was 2 years old. Yeah, the types of abuse, I can only imagine, like, when I found out because I was like, putting you in. For 2 weeks, I tried to get to you. And when I found out that 2 weeks that they were out of my, care.
Yes.
This is what happened. 1, 2, 3. And he did something to the girls. Mine is a whole inside thing. Because I just couldn't believe it. I was like, no. Like you spend your whole life doing everything to be protective and as a sister,
Yes.
My dad was a Marine Corps, My mom is the granddaughter of one of the attorneys for the police, like.
Wow.
You want to do all these things to protect your kids, and you still can't protect them. And that sinking feeling was just, that's why I hope that maybe I could leave with an image of the portrait of that police officer who basically rescued her. And I mean, it was priceless.
I can tell you this, there are times, if God wants to put that in your life, there are artists, and it's kind of hard to describe people at times, what they look like, but I mean, there's a slim possibility that God would bring an artist into your life to recreate what you could remember to how you would describe the scene. And it could be very precious, especially if you see anything that looks like him. That's you could just look at a whole lot of police photos, and they have all kinds of things that are available today. And just the right person. There are people who love to do artist renderings of something like that, if that would be meaningful. You could pray and ask if the Lord wants that to take place. Sometimes that's what he would want to provide.
If anyone wants to lend their talents like that, that's, we had a forensic child abuse recovery expert who taught us about play therapy and drawing and coloring, and that's right in the same line of what you just said.
Exactly, yes.
That's like what the forensic expert said. I mean, like, therapy is the key to some of this when it comes to communicating through drawings.
Well, when you think about it, again, going back to truth, there's so much said about truth and how it sets us free. It may be that if you were to do again, to write basically like your life from the beginning and go through this horrid time, and just ask God to bring to your mind what he would want you to remember. That can be a big part of the healing.
Caregivers come from different backgrounds, education, and experience.
Listening to Hope in the Night, a ministry of hope for the heart, offering God's truth for today's problems. We are here because of your ongoing prayers and support of the ministry here, and we do thank you for that. If you have questions or concerns about childhood sexual abuse, we have resources that can help you. We would ask you to call the Care Center now at 800-488-HOPE, and they can pray with you and help you get those resources into your hands. The number again, 800-488-4673. When you call, just ask for these resources by name. They are Keys for Living, Childhood Sexual Abuse, The Secret Storm, also Abuse Recovery from Surviving to Thriving. You may also email us at customercare@hopefortheheart.org with any questions regarding topics and resources discussed in tonight's program. Let's return to our conversation now with Michelle.
By the way, Michelle, I have 2 younger sisters, and they are 4 and 5 years younger than me. And because of growing up in a dysfunctional family, I felt very protective of them. And couldn't always protect them either. But I can tell you, when you were talking, I thought, oh, do I identify with what you're saying? Now, I did not have the extreme of what you have described, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone. And you're very precious. I hear your heart. You tried to be a rescuer, and you were a rescuer at times, and then you were yourself victimized. And
that was the hardest thing about this, is that it's like being in a parade and waving to everybody because, it's like a victory lap, and then next thing you know, you're being abused. It's far from what you're expecting,
Yeah. Well, anyone can get in a powerless state depending on who the perpetrator is, what the age is, and basically the power that perpetrator has. And there are times that, and this is why even boys they are let me see, I want to say it this way. The hardest of the genders, or the harder gender, it's the boys that they just have the hardest time talking about it, because it's like, but I'm a guy and I should have been able to protect myself. And, no, you can't always protect yourself. And, of course, you described this man who, with 11 counts of, basically he was raping boys. So, but it is not, so often you have to really help boys understand, just because you're a male, that doesn't mean you can always protect yourself. And this is where there should be adults who, of all things, just being a protector of children. And yet, as you've already said, you had a mother, you were in a foster home, but she violated you. And so honey, I have a question. Is there something that you freeze over, or or there's a trigger, or there's something that happens to you in a certain situation and you just try to avoid it like the plague, but, is there anything like that occurs to you? If so, it would be normal, but I'm just asking.
Like a places like undressing in front of other women. That was one. I'm a little subconscious because I'm more overweight. I'm not usually overweight, but I've gained some weight. And I'm a little, I'm shy about people looking at me, So I wouldn't be going to like a locker room. I would look for a private place to go. I stay home for that reason too. One of the things is that when she started gradually doing things to me, and then to my boyfriend at the time, and I wrote him a letter. He's married now, and I wrote him a letter because I didn't think he knew, but she was targeting me, and then she was going after him, and she was really extremely jealous, and I think that's why she did it, is that to me, she's an offender. I know what an offender is. And she tried to hurt him. To me, being protective, I broke up with him, thinking like he would be mad at me and not talk to me. Well, it worked.
Wow.
But in my own trained thinking, I was like, I got to protect you, and from calling me, because if I let you get hurt, then that's more guilt, more of that shame that I live with when I undress or I'm going to a beach. There's places I don't go. I wasn't always like this, but there's a lot of shame, physical, attributes. I'm an extremely photogenic person, so I'm not like, I can get away with a lot of things. The weight thing I cannot. And she she was a sloppy person, and she was abusive. And luckily, I was old enough and well developed mentally about what I had been through. I've been in counseling also, that I could cope with what happened and talk to somebody. The only problem is I didn't open up about it. I didn't open up about a lot of this stuff. It seems like the sex offender that abused my sisters almost, in a way, when he died, I started to finally open up about what happened.
Good.
So
Good.
the foster mom thing what bothered me is that there were two foster mothers that did abuse. That same, my sister that was abused by the sex offender, the foster mother would yank her in back and forth to the bedroom and the kitchen every night. And she was extremely physically abusive with my sister, that we got out of that first foster home into this other foster home, and then abuse began there too. And me personally, we were better off with my mom. My mom made a poor choice when she left my sister at the daycare center. Truthfully, my mom was more fair. She loved my sisters, okay? She was going through a difficult time because my dad and her were, separating, and I don't think she was thinking the way a normal mother would think, because she was a good mom.
Yes.
I feel like my mom didn't get a chance at all to. My mom would have been the better option for what we went through in the foster homes,
Yeah, I hear that. Yes.
I didn't always look at it that way because I was mad at my mom for what we went through. And when I look back at what happened, my mom was a better choice. I mean, we should have gone back home. We should have gone back home with our mom, so my sister would have not had to gone through this. So,
well, let me ask, you use a word, I think it's like the word shame, but it seemed it was like in relation to your sisters being abused. Do you have a feeling of guilt, or that you weren't able to protect them? Have you struggled with that?
What happened is, during that time, there was girls harassing me at school. That's why I was staying home. And that whole year of 1984, 1985, I was in junior high, and these girls were stalking me in the locker room. So I still have issues like that. I'm just now recovering from, because it's all overlapped each other. It was like I was being stalked by these girls at school. It seems that all my abuse was women abusing me, sexually abusing me, and not to say that there wasn't male abuse, but I had a good relationship with my dad, so I seemed to have a good relationship with Ben overall. Like I didn't have to, I didn't fear men. I'm not I don't have any issues that I can think of. The women though were the ones that can be in the corner at school. It was like being in a prison, female prison. So my mom let me stay home, and for that 2 weeks that my sisters weren't with me, because I was planning to quit school. I told my mom I was going to quit, and I'll just stay home and babysit, because my mom needed help, and she was trying to get a job. And it seemed like it made sense, because what I was going through was terrifying.
Yeah, of course.
And I still have issues. That's what I was meaning, like in a dressing room. I don't go into dressing rooms. I don't know if this has anything to do with what I went through, but my overall hope is, from what I gather from all this, is that I have the tools to go to small group again, and that I can grow, and maybe I'll have that canvas painted, or maybe I'll inspire somebody, maybe I'll help somebody, maybe I'm helping somebody right now just by talking about my story. I don't
You
know.
really, yeah,
You know,
you could
I
be
think-
encouraging somebody to get it out. I'm going to encourage you one more time to go back and just say, Lord, bring to my mind the things that you want me to remember, because I'm hearing that there have been some increased memories. And, just start at the beginning. It's kind of like a timeline of your earliest memories. And I think there'll be, what happens is when we are really, it's called journaling. And it's not just for the sake of journaling, but there are times when it really can help give us perspective over some of the trauma and tragedy that we've experienced. But the more you do that, my friend, it's like then more and more you're able to kind of put it in front of you instead of letting it be inside of you. It's like it's more objective. It's like you're getting it out. This happened, and the more you tell the real story, then the easier it gets. And I know that from first-hand experience. And it took me years to tell anything. And yet I recognize it doesn't have the power, it doesn't impact me with the tremendous sadness and pain that I once had. Different scenario from yours, but I can tell you it took years for me to talk about it. And so now I can tell my story, and it's healthy. And I can see, oh, this is why I've done this, I'm going to mention one thing very quickly. Let's say you didn't want to be controlled by not being able to go to a waiting room where, like if you're trying on clothes. One thing you do is you say, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And so you just walk into the dressing room and then walk out. And you just do it over and over again. And over and over again.
I would like to see
until
that
it's
on
like,
video.
I mean, but that's what you do when there is something that's like a phobia or it's PTSD. You repeat it over and over and over until it has no more control over you. We're going to help you, honey.